Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. You're watching another edition of The Small Business Show right here at ASBN.com. Today we're talking about turning heritage into opportunity, building a brand that celebrates culture, brings bold flavors to the market, and introduces healthier options for consumers. We'll hear about perseverance, creativity, and the power of sharing your story while making an impact in your community. Joining us to share his journey is Victor Guardiola, who is the founder and CEO of Bawi, the sparkling, better-for-you agua fresca inspired by his Mexican roots and South Texas upbringing. Victor, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. So for our viewers, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came up with the idea for Bawi.
Yeah, so I'm a first-generation immigrant. My family moved to Texas at the age of 2, and I would say the strongest linkage to my culture has always been food and beverage. So I grew up drinking a lot of incredibly nostalgic beverages like Jarritos and cane sugar Coca-Cola. And when I came of age and started caring about my healthier choices, I realized that my population, Latinos at large, didn't have many better-for-you options. So I embarked on a food and beverage entrepreneurship program, and I found 2 key reasons on why we should be innovating on this. The first being health innovation within the Hispanic beverage category, and the second is bringing cultural representation outside of just chips, salsas, and tortillas.
You look at the market as a whole, right? You say that while people that you grew up with and Hispanics and what have you are look at this product and say this is great, but then at the same time you're talking about a whole big world out there and certainly in the U.S. market of non-Hispanics that would enjoy this product as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I talk about ad nauseum. I was connected with the Siete Foods founders super early on. Siete Foods HQ is actually my first account here in Austin, Texas. I dropped off the cases myself. But I think what they did incredibly well and what we did really well is creating some mass market appeal. So in other words, a non-Latino consumer doesn't have to know what an agua fresca is to look at our front panel and understand this is a fruit juice forward, better for you kind of beverage that is likely culturally differentiated. And for Latino consumers, they understand the typography and the loteria card theme iconography in the front panel. So we are a business first that's very communicative because we have to address the mass market instead of specializing in the cultural nuance of a beverage or a brand.
Sure. It looks like for the drinks that I'm holding right here, which is lemon and lime, it's got 40 calories. What would a comparable can of Coca-Cola have in the way of calories?
Certainly. I mean, traditional carbonated soft drinks, that category is usually 40 grams of sugar or 160 calories, which is a lot. And really the research that inspired this was, instructive from my dad, who's a statistician, works with a lot of health and data sciences. And I dug into a lot of academic literature around sugar sweetened beverages and came to find that they're sort of public health enemy number 1 as it relates to metabolic disease, all-cause mortality, and it seemed like the place where I could focus my efforts and take tons of sugars out of the diets of Latinos and reshape what Mexican cuisine is seen as in the United States.
Sure. So where can the product be found now? What's your distribution look like?
So we're in roughly 1,400 doors right now. We're adding them aggressively. I've been on sales calls all day, but really our primary markets are California, Texas, and Chicago. You can primarily find us in natural grocers similar to Whole Foods Market. Whole Foods is being rolled out as we speak. But really where we shine the best is food service and on-premise because we're effectively a dual use case beverage similar to Red Bull. Okay. We're great on our own as a non-alcoholic option, but we're effectively a sparkling fruit juice, which lends itself to mixability.
Yeah.
So I have a ton of, beer gardens, cocktail bars, et cetera, who are mixing us and getting multiple uses out of, the same amount of fridge space, so to speak. So that's really our Trojan horse to break into a lot of these markets. And that's where we're focusing our resources for sure.
And for an entrepreneur like you that puts together a drink like this, is it your goal to land a distributor that already has a number of outlets nationwide that just says, give me your product and we'll get it on the shelves?
That's a great question. I think as of recent, the strategy has shifted from a distribution focus to more being like a customer focused.
Okay.
So specifically for me, I'm looking for multi-door chains,
Hmm.
these Chipotles of the world, so to speak, probably a little smaller than Chipotle for now,
Okay.
but nonetheless, these doors that can bring in a ton of density in a market,
Hmm.
and they'll essentially communicate with the distributor and say, hey, we want Bowie in all of our locations instead of me reaching out to the distributor and having to, like swim against the current the whole time and try to convince them that Bowie's the next big thing.
Yeah.
I'd rather show them first that I have 30 customers in your area who want to purchase us, and that usually forces the distribution.
Okay. Okay. What is the name? Where'd the name come from, and what does it mean?
Yeah, so when I started that food and beverage practicum at UT Austin, I needed a trademark name. And the most knowledgeable person about Mexican history I know is my dad. In the area in northern Mexico where my family's from, Chihuahua, the Chihuahua Desert, the native people are called the Raramuri, and they're known for their ultra long distance running ability. So they run in leather sandals, beat the brakes off of Norwegian ultra marathoners consistently, and their word for spring water is Bowie. And the only reason you haven't seen that, on the website or a little more customer facing is I think it's really important for me to establish a mechanism to give back to the community
Hmm.
before I market against it, because we have to be super careful with how we're representing our culture and selling it. And
Hmm.
until I establish that mechanism, it's not going to be, something we're going to market toward.
Sure, sure. Now, I'm sure many can see that you are a young entrepreneur. And this is a huge undertaking when you're talking about a product like this. Just to putting it together, getting it, somebody to get it in the cans for you, to distribute it for you, to open up those different channels, to get it on the shelves of very prominent retailers, I might add. Nice job on that. It still seems a little daunting. I mean, when you look at the landscape of beverages and you just walk down the aisle of a supermarket today, it's a little overwhelming with all of the choices. Walk me through that. Did that obviously that didn't scare you?
Yeah, I mean, ignorance is truly bliss when it comes to embarking on an entrepreneurial journey. And, had I known how difficult the journey would be, I perhaps would have taken a little bit of pause. But generally speaking, I feel like entrepreneurship is grabbing yourself and throwing your body 6 feet ahead and encountering the next problem. So, whether we're talking about disparate operational categories like product formulation, marketing, etc. My MO has always been I'm going to network with subject matter experts within these fields and figure out what success looks like for them.
Hmm.
And that's how you kind of set the goalposts between what does an exceptional CMO do? What am I doing? And where is the delta between where can I land, so to speak? So when it came to fundraising, marketing, etc., I just figured out how the greats did it, and I tried to tailor it to my specific needs at the
Hmm.
scale I'm at.
Fantastic. So one of the most impressive parts of your story is that you actually raised funding through cold calls. I mean, that's
Oh
that's a
yeah.
very daunting task for any founder, and many founders are like, "Yep, too intimidating for me. Really don't want to do that. Maybe I'll talk to a couple of key people out there that can put me in touch with people that can, get me funded properly." Can you walk us through how you did that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my opus in fundraising is generally you never know if you don't ask and
Yep.
try to have a conversation. And it's been incredibly important for me to just shoot as many shots as possible, so to speak. So some of the earlier outreach, I was just looking in my local market and seeing who are the successful entrepreneurs here.
Right.
And for me, that was Patrick Terry from P. Terry's Burger Stand, the founder of Siete Foods, founder of Torchy's Tacos, and locating their emails and following up with them. And I think what a lot of people don't realize in the fundraising process is you have to add value every time you communicate with anyone. And my initial investors had received at least a dozen emails from me before I got a single response or a sign of life. But
Wow.
every single follow up has to add value. I have this new pack out I would love to share with you. I have this new piece of merch I would love to share with you,
Sure.
et cetera, et cetera. Or the golden ticket is I have this amazing investor I know you would be familiar with that's joining my round. let me know if you'd like to talk. And the last note on this too is I think a lot of the time whenever entrepreneurs are raising funds, they squarely begin the conversation by asking people for money.
Yeah.
And that is never how you should start these conversations.
Right.
You're asking for advice, if anything, a 30-minute coffee, a 15-minute call,
Sure.
and you're just squeaking your toe in the door.
Yep.
Because once they're in your network, you have a bit more agency there, and you convert better, for lack of better words.
That's right. That's right. That's great. That's great advice for sure. Was there a particular moment or call that really changed the trajectory of Bawi's journey?
Certainly. I think that was probably my very first investor, Patrick Terry. Just the momentum you accrue as you gather investors is incredibly important. And getting that first investor is oftentimes what you need to close the rest of your round.
Yeah.
So after Patrick came in, the founder of Torchy's Tacos came in, and then I had a flywheel going. So
Right.
that was really important for me too. And secondary to that, as I was just focused on building my network, amazing things come through the woodwork where I get asked for an introduction to a venture fund before I've taken any venture capital. And lo and behold, we get a term sheet in the next month for a sizable amount of capital, which keeps me doing, what I'm best at, which is sales,
Yeah.
instead of just focusing on the fundraising component. So
Right.
a few of those things are sort of, I guess, just shrouded in serendipity.
Sure.
But the more shots you take, the more luck
That's right.
you have, like
That's
the more
right.
surface area you'll have.
You got a great attitude as it relates to that, because that's so true. Now, the other founders that I've spoken to, I should say, that's in this group, whether they're making popcorn or whatever, they'll say that they're after the big retailers, whether it be Costco or any of the other Publix or any of the other big department and grocery stores out there, and all of a sudden they find out that they get a PO. And it's kind of like, uh-oh, we just got an order for 2, tractor trailer loads of the product, and it's got to be there in 6 weeks, which now has a whole host of other issues that they've got to deal with and challenges. Did that happen with you? I mean, when a company goes, yeah, great, get your truck up here, we need them. You got to produce these quickly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is a great point, and where I feel most founders are presented with these very shiny opportunities of, adding 1,000 doors in a national retail rollout.
Yeah.
But to your point, that causes a lot of complications and things to worry about, because every single retailer is going to require different things, whether it's slotting fees where you're paying to be activated in a door, or promotions. Managing that takes a full-time person, and so many of these programs will bring young brands on, and it's survival of the fittest.
Right.
And very few survive if they don't have the necessary sales infrastructure to support the accounts, because it's one thing to show investors, we just added $500,000 of top line because we added these 1,000 doors, but you won't keep them, and you will have down months if you can't manage it properly.
Right. Yeah, there's no question about it. And also to have the funding necessary to produce the product in a timely fashion and get that shipped out, even though you may not get paid for 30, 60, 90 days in some cases, right, from these retailers.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And, the biggest pain point is the cash conversion cycle. For a lot of CPG businesses, you could make your product on day one, and a lot of major broadline distributors won't pay you for 180 days, or they'll pay you and deduct an incredible amount of very vague deductions that you then have to weed through.
Right.
So it's a tough cycle, and managing cash and having financial and operations expertise as an early stage CPG company is the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure that you know the Liquid Death story very well, and obviously $1 billion company, and is that the ultimate goal, is to get this out in the marketplace, get consumers on board where they're buying this incredible product from you, and stores are happy, everybody's happy, and then along comes a big conglomerate that goes, we love your product, we love what you've set up, here's a nice fat check, and see you later.
Yeah, I would say ubiquity is certainly our ambition here. And, we've had some really interesting conversations with some of these larger players already. And what I think is quite interesting about Bawi is it fits in so many different portfolios, major beverage companies, major snack companies, massive Hispanic food and companies that are worth billions of dollars.
Sure.
But ultimately, it's going to come down to who can take us the furthest at that point.
Yeah.
However, I can say that I'm not the only cook in the kitchen at this point. I have quite a few investors, and now it's a much more conversation we have with all of our stakeholders whenever an opportunity is present, as to whether or not we would like to sell. But my personal contention is I am not going to let go of this company until the right offer comes around.
Yeah.
And the right offer is like orders of magnitude, higher than one would think.
Yeah.
And it would definitely be swinging for the fences in a similar manner to Liquid Death
There you
or
go.
Poppy or these others.
There you go. That's great. That's great. You got the right attitude on that. I heard that you host your own office hours. Can you explain what that is?
Absolutely. So I think the biggest gap in a lot of consumer goods innovation is certainly like fundraising, generally speaking. And what a lot of people don't realize is that 80% of funding for early stage startups are friends and family funding. And whenever you take these socioeconomic groups like Latinos, who historically have 5 times less the household wealth, you just see less participation.
Sure.
Because this sector is so capital intensive. My first production runs cost me $100,000. And you can't expect, this population to be innovating at the same scale if the socioeconomic disparities are too high. So my office hours have been an ambition to help level the playing field, so to speak, and teach them my exact process on how I was able to raise funding for Bawi. But it's something I'm incredibly passionate about, because ultimately, whenever these products come to life, like I'm looking at Senor Mango, this brand I mentor right here, this mango company out of Sinaloa in Mexico. Their product is so exceptional. If a retailer doesn't have it, they lose out. And if a customer doesn't have it, they certainly lose out.
Sure.
So if I can help them get their hat in the ring, then everyone wins, even the entrepreneur.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What are some of the biggest barriers that you see minority founders face today, and how can the startup ecosystem do better in supporting them?
Yes, certainly. I think for a long time, a lot of organizations were trying to, prop up minority entrepreneurs by offering, curriculum style practicums or incubators where these founders are empowered with finance and accounting workshops. And as lovely as it is to provide educational resources to them, I don't think it speaks to the core problem of this proverbial cold start.
Yeah.
So many entrepreneurs are facing when it comes to funding.
Sure.
I think fundraising, literacy, and education should be near the top of that list. And I think many of these entrepreneurs are much better suited to copy a sales approach that I would use for fundraising, organizing my investors in a dedicated CRM, outreaching on a singular cadence instead of getting ready for a pitch competition.
Yeah.
And a lot of these entrepreneurs would prep for months, right, for the chance to win a $20,000 grant. When in reality, if they just dedicated that time towards learning their craft, learning their pitch, being able to articulate what's special about them and their offering, they would be much better suited to embark on this crazy entrepreneurial endeavor that requires a ton of cash.
Right. No question about it. Where is the company 5 years from now?
5 years from now, we will be in every major natural retailer and every major conventional retailer. Food service will be dominated in a similar light to Red Bull. You walk into any bar district in any major metro in the US, and you will see a Red Bull cooler behind a bar for Red Bull vodkas and, similar cocktails they make.
Sure.
And I fully expect Bawi to be in a similar vein where we have our branded coolers everywhere. We're doing food service activations. We're probably not doing extreme sports, but we're making an impact in these communities. And lo and behold, I hope that ends up taking sugar out of the diets of millions of Americans, Latinos, et cetera, and, wakes up these sleeping giants to either innovate on health or acquire a company that is.
That's right. Victor Guardiola, founder and CEO of a company called Bawi, an incredible tasting drink as well. I tried this before we went on today, and I highly recommend you get your can. We definitely want to do a follow-up with you, Victor, because I know you're going places with this brand, and you're such an impressive young man, and congratulations on all your success thus far. But we're going to be watching you because we're going to be rooting for you from the sidelines. Love to do a follow-up, as I said, to see where this goes.
Absolutely. I'll be here.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of The Small Business Show with Jim Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.com.